minutes remaining in the session. We hope you have a productive day.
When you guys are ready, Coach will make a quick opening comment, and then we'll go to questions.
Great to see everybody here today. Great to be here today. Good morning to everybody. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Orange Bowl Committee and everybody here in South Florida for the great hospitality they've provided, our team, our coaches, our football families here. We really do understand all the hard work that they do, what they put in preparation, as well as what they do in taking care of us while we're here, and we certainly do appreciate that. As a team, we certainly embrace the challenges that every season, sort of brings, and we certainly want, our team, our players to demand a standard of excellence that's going to help them be all they can be, whether it's personally, academically, or athletically, and certainly we're here to try to take advantage of a great opportunity that they've created for themselves in terms of what they've been able to accomplish this year against a very good, Notre Dame team. And I think the thing about having a great attitude toward trying to be all you can be, it sort of shares the responsibility that players and coaches have to continue to improve so that they can reach their full potential. We've always tried to develop a sort of be a champion type of character with our players in terms of the importance of being a team, sort of respecting and trusting the principles and values of the organization and each other as teammates. We certainly want our players to be positive in the attitude that they have about trying to be all they can be, and the body language that they present and how it affects other people, and the responsibility that leaders have to affect other people in a positive way. And we want our players to be responsible for their own self-determination, which means that I can do my job. We define the expectation, and they go about doing it in a way that's going to help them be successful, and that certainly takes a tremendous work ethic that is a combination of a lot of intangibles, whether it's ability to give effort on a consistent basis, play with the mental and physical toughness to be a great competitor, and have the discipline to execute that you need to in whatever it is you're choosing to do. So those are some of the challenges that we have. It's one thing to establish those things. It's another thing to sustain them. And certainly our challenge has been to sustain them, and in some ways you fight human nature a little bit when you try to sustain those things in terms of people that have success, kind of want to be rewarded for it and want to be able to take it easy. And success is not something that's a continuum that you can take for granted. It's a ongoing process that you have to work at every day. Because you're always going to have new challenges, and that's certainly going to be, the challenge for our team here and the opportunity that we have to play Notre Dame. Excuse me? No, I'm kind of excited about the opportunity that our team has. It's really about our team and this game. We're always happy to come back to South Florida. We have some great relationships here and some very fond memories of being here. And but right now there's, we recruited and worked to develop, this team for a long, long time, and it's really a lot more about them being here and having the opportunity and trying to get them prepared to take advantage of that opportunity than it is, anything that's happened in my past. Well, it's always been, our philosophy to have, a two running back system. In some cases, we've had three guys that have been very, very productive, and I think the reasoning for that is we like for guys to not get wore down during the season so that they can have a shared responsibility and, not have a guy run the ball 40 times for 5 games and then he's out for the year. But have guys that are going to touch it 15 to 20 times and have 2 guys do it and share that responsibility and keep both those guys sort of, healthy and going and improving throughout the season. So that's always been a formula that's worked very well for us. Well, we've had some good combinations. You know, Trent Richardson, Mark Ingram, the most recent, and those two guys complemented each other very well. And I think the two guys that we have, you know, right now are both big backs. They're both, you know, physical guys. I think they have a tremendous amount of respect for each other, and you know, they've both done a really good job for us. So it's hard to make comparisons between players, but these two guys have done a really good job all year long.
Aside from everything else, how much
the two traditions going head to head, and can you explain the process for people who don't really understand what that's really all about?
Well, you know, first of all, we have a tremendous amount of respect for tradition and all the people who created the tradition, first of all, in our organization at the University of Alabama. I mean, you know, there's a lot of coaches, there's a lot of players. Probably the most significant is Coach Bryant, who had a tremendous amount of success for a long, long time, which we have a tremendous amount of respect for because of the difficulty in sustaining success and the standard of excellence that he was able to sustain. But we also have a tremendous amount of respect for, you know, Notre Dame and their tradition, having been around it very closely for 10 years at Michigan State. We really kind of understand that and have a tremendous respect and appreciation for that. So, and I think that having those two traditions come together in a game like this, you know, certainly creates a lot of national interest, which is probably really good for college football.
Coach, I've heard people, you were going to tell me about the process. What does that mean?
Well, the process is really what you have to do day in and day out to be successful. We try to define, you know, the standard that we want everybody to sort of work toward, adhere to, and do it on a consistent basis. And, you know, the things that I talked about before, being responsible for your own self-determination, having a positive attitude, having great work ethic, having discipline, to be able to execute on a consistent basis, whatever it is you're choosing to do, those are the things that we try to focus on. And we don't try to focus as much on outcomes as we do on being all that you can be and the things that you need to do to be all you can be. Eliminate the clutter and all the things that are going on outside and focus on the things that you can control with how you sort of go about and take care of your business. And that's something that's ongoing and it can never change. And you know, so it's the process of what it takes to be successful, very simply.
aside from everything else, how much does
Kirby Smart talked yesterday about the mental aspect of the game as it pertains to you coaching now, and he said you're probably more involved with that now than you are the actual defense. Can you talk a little bit about how you get your players to believe what you say and all the things you do to get their minds right? And I know brainwashing is a negative connotation, but in this case, is that kind of a good thing?
Well, I never thought of what I try to get the players to do as brainwashing, but you know, really what we're trying to do is, you know, to get them to be all they can be, and try to understand the things that they need to do that. And you know, so many times something as simple as running a 40-yard wind sprint. You know, I'll say, we want you to run as fast as you can run, but a guy will run fast enough to beat the guy next to him. So is that really being all you can be, or is that putting sort of a self-imposed limitation on all you can be relative to what the guy is next to you? And that's not really what we're trying to get people to aspire to. And I think really great athletes, whether it's Michael Johnson, Michael Jordan, Mariano Rivera, you know, those guys sort of get it. You know, that they understand that the last race doesn't really matter. No matter how many game-winning shots I've made in the past, the only one that counts is the next one. So what do I need to do to continue to prepare to be able to take advantage of those situations? And I think that, you know, that's what we're trying to constantly get our players to do. And it's a battle. It's a battle versus human nature, because sometimes they like to get casual in their approach and their preparation, and not do things the way you need to do them to be successful. And that's the challenge that we always have, and we're always looking for ways to inspire them to continue to be all they can be.
Coach, you mentioned Bear Bryant earlier. I've heard people say that if Alabama wins this game, then Nick Saban is in the same conversation Ask Coach Bryant.
I don't. I wouldn't agree with that at all. I mean, I wouldn't agree with that at all. I mean, and it's not about that. You know, it's about this team, these players, all they've done all year, embracing the challenges that they've had, especially after having success a year ago. You know, to get themselves in a position to have this opportunity, it's all about trying to help those players be successful, and you know that's really all we're focused on and all we care about. And I don't think it would be fair at all to Bear Bryant and the tradition that he created and the standard of excellence that he sustained for years and years and years to really, there's no one that I know that I would say should be even spoken of in the same sort of circumstance at all.
Aside from anything else, how much does luck?
Over the past several days, some of your players were asked to define the word dynasty, and they didn't want to even mention the word. How do you keep your kids not thinking about what happened in the past, what could happen if you win this game, what this means for the program?
Well, you know, I think that to this team, this is about what this team can accomplish. You know, 2 days after we won the game last year, we had a team meeting, and the first thing I said to this team was, you guys are not the national champions. Some of you played on a national championship team, but the challenges that this team has are all in front of you in terms of what you're able to accomplish and what you're able to do to sort of set a standard for this team this year. And what you did last year is not going to have any impact or effect on what you do next year other than make the game that you play against whoever you're playing against a target. You're going to be the target. Everybody's going to bring their A game to beat you because of what you've accomplished. So you need to be focused on what you need to do to be all you can be as a team and see what this team can accomplish. So it's sort of separate. This team is separate from everything that's happened in the past and anything that can happen in the future, and it's sort of precious present moment of what this team can do. So I can see why. I wouldn't want to comment about those types of things, and I can see why the players wouldn't, because we're trying to get them to focus on today, this play, this time, the next play, the next quarter, the next game. I mean, that's what we've always tried to do with our players, and I think those are external factors, I call them. That's clutter, that when you start thinking about those things, it's very difficult to focus on the things that you need to do to be successful right now.
How has this group embraced that? Has it been easy for you to get that message through to them, or has it been a battle?
Well, I really can't comment on that. I mean, I think the way they play in the game will probably say a lot about whether they've been able to embrace that challenge and actually live that challenge, and because regardless of what we think as coaches, you never really know for sure how a team's going to respond and react and play in a game. I mean, you just never know. I mean, sometimes you practice really well, sometimes your team really overachieves, sometimes your team underachieves, and as a coach, you know, you're constantly trying to figure out, you know, maybe why that happens and what you may have done to affect it positively or negatively. But you never really know for sure until you get out there and start playing. Well, I think that the question is could I comment on our senior success? They've certainly been an instrumental part in all the success that we've had. And I think the thing that people need to understand is, you know, their roles have constantly changed, you know, as they've grown up in the program and their years in the program. You know, they started out being young players who needed to mature to be able to develop the consistency and performance to be good players. And they depended on leadership of others to set an example for that so that they could sort of develop the characteristics that would help them be consistently successful. And now their role has completely changed to where they are the leaders that set the example and embrace the challenges. You know, I had one of them early in the season, and I won't mention any names, say, I had a meeting. We have a leadership group, so I have a meeting with them on occasion, and I was telling them that I think they need to do a little bit more and take a little more responsibility for affecting other people with their example and that type of thing. And, you know, one of the guys said, I just want to do my job. And I said, it is a part of your job now. Your role has changed. Not just to do your job, but to help other people and affect them so that they can do their job more effectively. Somebody was in that role for you. Now you need to be in that role for somebody else. And it was like a light went off, like, oh, I get it now. You know, it's not just about me playing my position, but it's about me playing my position and being willing to take a responsibility to affect other people in a positive way.
Aside from everything else, how much does luck play a role in teams getting here?
I'm sorry.
Aside from everything else, how much does luck play a role in teams getting here?
The what?
Luck. How much does luck play a role in teams?
I don't know. I've always been one of those that, you know, doesn't really believe in luck. You know, you kind of create your own luck by how you execute and how you perform. I think that sometimes people think you're lucky when you're able to make significant plays at critical times in games. And I think when you have sort of primetime players that can do that, that enhances your chances of being successful. Maybe to you that means it enhances your chances of being lucky. But I think it's their ability to execute at critical times in the game and stay focused on doing what they need to do to be successful that really creates the opportunities. I know when we went undefeated a couple years ago and won the championship, you know, we won a game 13-12 that we had to we blocked a field goal at the end of the game. But we might have had 4 guys that were primetime players that might have blocked the kick if the one guy didn't. So was that lucky, or were those guys prepared to take advantage of that opportunity if it came? I would say that it was a little bit more that they were prepared to take advantage of that opportunity and they were ready to make a play in a critical time of the game.
Coach, how do you go about maximizing yourself? You talk about maximizing each player. At this point in your career, how do you maximize yourself in terms of staying fresh for the next challenge, keeping in shape? What do you do?
Well, what you just said, the challenge is understanding and knowing that those players that you're trying to create this standard with, it's a constant sort of process of, you know, trying to develop that. And in college, maybe a little bit different than pro ball, you know, you probably lose 25% of your team, you know, each year. And that 25% of your team is the most mature part of your team. So it's sort of an ongoing process it's almost like if you have adolescent children, sort of watching them from 15 to 19 sort of go from one stage of development to the next in terms of their maturity, ability to handle adversity, frustrating situations. So that's constant, you know, that's constant. I mean, as soon as this game's over, we're going to have guys. Am I going out for the draft? Am I staying in school? We have guys graduating. We have new challenges with guys coming back that their role's going to change on the team for next year. So, I mean, I guess all that kind of keeps me fresh and challenge myself because I really understand that those things need to be addressed and they need to be addressed quickly so that you establish the right kind of sort of mental disposition that you can get those things done with the next team.
Is it hard to see guys like Fowler and Bell and Hart not be able to enjoy this game and the fruits of this season because of injuries? And how hard is it to send a couple of guys home on this kind of a stage?
Well, you know, first of all, I talked about being responsible for your own self-determination. You know, we clearly define the expectation for every player. We also clearly define the consequences if those expectations are not met. We also have a leadership group that I spoke with before that I would never make a decision without sort of their stamp of approval. So the combination of all those things, it's very, very difficult. If you have children of your own and your children don't meet your expectations, and you have to sort of, whatever it is you do to sort of, whether it's punishment or whatever, it's probably more difficult for you to do sometimes than it is for them. And I think that's certainly the case in this situation. You know, it's more difficult for me to carry this out than it may be even for the players, because I love the players. I love the players on our team, and I don't really ever want to do anything that hurts a player. But does this hurt a player, or does this help a player understand the consequences of not doing what's been defined for you to do? Because most of the time when you have those rules or regulations, those consequences can be significant in your life. You know, you choose to drive when you're drinking and somebody gets killed. I mean, it's a bad consequence, much worse than getting sent home from a bowl game, but it's the same thing. You knew the rules, you knew the regulations, but you didn't respect the consequences of what might happen if you didn't do the right thing. So maybe it helps them learn. And I'm hopeful in this case it'll help these guys learn. It was the only reason to do it.
The guys who were injured missing this game, is that?
Well, you know, I always have it's always tough as a coach when you see guys that are great competitors who have contributed to the team, and then they get injured and they can't compete. You know, they can't contribute to the team the way that they want to. I know it's very difficult for them. We understand that and we respect that, and I know every one of these guys, you know, would love to have the opportunity to play in this game, but in each case they're going to have some opportunity in the future to maybe be able to create something positive for themselves, so that they gain an opportunity like this for themselves in the future, and that's what they have to hope for, and that's what they have to work for.
I know it's not about one-on-one matchups, of course, but does it surprise you at all that there seems to be a lot of attention about Derek Jones and Otis Smith, simply because linemen typically, while it's vital, typically doesn't get that fan hype more so than other positions?
Well, but you know, I do think, you know, matchups are important in games. You know, I mean, they have some very, very good players, and their nose guard is certainly one of those very, very good players. We have a very good center, and I know there's been a significant amount of concern about his injury, but he has been able to practice for 5 practices now and not had any problem. It's the way we chose to manage it, to try to get him to a point where, you know, he could perform, and we wouldn't put him out there before he was ready, where he gets set back. But I think those two guys are really, really good players, and I think I'm glad that linemen are getting recognized, and those kind of matchups are being, you know, talked about. So, and I think it's going to be a good one.
Nick, let's start when you look. Some of these work out. I assume you well to work out. How do you push yourself in that regard? Do you say to yourself, before, to run fast enough to beat the guy next to you, or do you run fast enough to be the best you can be? Do you push yourself in your personal stuff?
Well, you know, I don't probably work out as much as you think. I can't run very fast anymore. And but I think from a program standpoint, you know, we try to have the best program in the country. We try to offer the most value to a player who's choosing to come to a school by the personal development programs that we have, the academic support program, which has been very positive for us in terms of graduation rate and people having success in developing careers off the field, which is really why you go to college. It's the #1 thing that you're going to accomplish as a student athlete, and how we've been able to develop players so that they have an opportunity maybe to develop a career as a football player, which means play at the next level. So I guess from that standpoint, we're constantly trying to improve the quality of our program so that we have the best program in the country, so that we offer the most value to the players. And that's something that's important to us because we want a player to be more successful in his life because he was involved in the program. And some of the lessons that he learned in the program are things that will benefit him, in his life. So from that standpoint, we're always in a battle and a race to try to have the best program.
Nick, do you have unfinished business in the NFL, or do you have enough challenges to stay?
I don't have any unfinished business in the NFL. I have a job right now, and I want to do the best job that I possibly can, for this team right now, to do all the things that we need to do to take advantage of the opportunities that we've created for ourselves and what's going to be a very, very challenging game for us. So, that's not something that I'm concerned about. It's not something I'm thinking about. It's not even something that I want to do. I want to be a college coach. We have a successful program at this juncture in my career. I'm not looking for new challenges. I'm just trying to take advantage of helping the challenging situation that we have continue to be successful.
Do you feel coaching way into your 70s? Think that far ahead?
I can't answer that. I kind of take this year to year, day to day. God willing, I'd like to coach for a long time, but as long as I'm happy, I think, sometimes I see coaches on TV and I say to myself, I wonder if that guy's happy in his life, and I think sometimes when you get in this business, everything's about the game. And if it gets all about the game and it's not about trying to be a good person, trying to be a good father, trying to be a good role model for the young men that you're trying to affect in a positive way, trying to serve other people, whether it's through our Knicks kids or whatever it is, to, help other people who have needs. When it leaves and just becomes all about the game, then I'm not sure you can be happy as a person, because I don't think, you try to give to the game as much, but when you're concerned about the game, giving your ego everything it needs for you to sort of survive, I don't think that's a good thing. And if that ever happens, maybe I ought to start doing something else. I don't know what it would be. I don't think I'm qualified for much, so it'd be a tough one.
Coach, you talked about the injured guys a few moments ago. Talk about the guys who had to step into the toughness of this team. Lost all the guys offensively to injury. Barrett, the SEC title game, kind of battling through. Even maybe more so than physically tough. Talk about the mental toughness of this team to keep going when you've lost guys and others stepped in.
Well, this has been the most players that had roles on the team, and pretty significant roles on the team, that we've lost for the season, in any season that I can remember, as a college coach. So that has created a lot of opportunity for other players, and even though we wish we had all those guys that can't play, we also really appreciate the way the guys have stepped up and taken advantage of the opportunity created by that circumstance, so that they've been able to contribute to the team. It's made our team a little thinner. It's made guys play a little bit more on special teams than maybe that we'd like for them to have to play. But every guy has, stepped up to that challenge and made a significant, contribution in a positive way. So even though we feel bad that we lost the players, and we also feel pretty good about how guys have taken advantage of the opportunities that were created by those circumstances.
Coach, is this the best defensive front this year? Are they comparable to anyone you've seen?
It's tough to make comparisons, but they are certainly an outstanding defensive front. They're big, they're physical. Nose guard's really hard to block. Linebacker is probably as good a linebacker as there is in college football. And the other guys in the front seven are all, in their own way, very, very good football players. So this is going to be very challenging for us because they're a little bit of a power team. We're a little bit of a power team. So even though we played against, some other really good fronts, I think this front probably matches up with us because of their size and the way they try to play physical. as well as anybody. Well, Jesse Williams has really done a great job for us. I mean, you know, we were concerned because he had a sort of a short shelf life as a player before he came, because he didn't play football growing up in Australia. But he improved so rapidly, and it's usually the instincts that you are concerned about when you have a guy like that, and how rapidly will he develop those instincts. And he improved far more quickly than we ever thought that he would, and he's really been a dominant player for us for 2 years now. And I think if he chooses to, he has a future as a football player. I don't think there's any question about that.
Coach, I know you said you're happy in college, but I was just wondering personally, when you hear your name floated for rumors, is it flattering for you, or is it more like, give me a break again?
Well, I think anytime anybody considers you for a position, it's, you know, somewhat ego gratifying, but, you know, I think that I just know myself. You know, I know myself. I learn things about myself through the experiences that I've had in the past, and I know the best path for me. And, you know, I think my wife's in agreement with that. I think my family's in agreement with that. So we're happy on the path that we're on. So there's really nothing to talk about. Well, you know, we have to recruit. So we don't, maybe after recruiting, you know, we usually take 3 or 4 days and go someplace, and, you know, Terry and I, the kids. So, but, you know, I think as a coach, where everybody else would look at the record and the result of what was accomplished, wins and loss wise, I think as a coach, you want to look at it a little bit more. Did we really get this team to develop to their full potential? Did they overachieve? Did they underachieve? You know, I mean, I've coached teams that I felt like we underachieved. At Alabama, in fact, a few years ago. And, you know, we've also had some teams that have really overachieved in what the way they've played and their performance level through the whole body of work. And that's not always equated on the final result. And I think that we self-analyze that way in every part of our program, you know, whether it's personal development, academic success, or, you know, how our team performed on the field. You know, who are you asking about? CJ. Well, CJ has had an outstanding year. Has been very, very productive for us. Probably our most productive player on defense. If you just said how many plays has he made, how many tackles has he made, if you put a production chart up of, you know, overall performance, and he doesn't even play all the time, but he has really been a good player, and I think has certainly, we had some great players last year on defense, and 4 or 5 guys that got, you know, drafted pretty highly. So those guys are difficult to replace, especially the experience that they had. And I think what CJ's done is sort of helped this team develop in overcoming some of those situations that were created by, you know, some of those guys leaving.
You mentioned that obviously he doesn't play the whole game. When guys come into your system, how do you get them to buy into the fact that might be part of the job? You're a really important player, but you might not necessarily play every single down like some of the linebackers on the team.
Well, you know, we feel like we have 3 guys that are all starting linebackers, and we feel like that they all deserve a role on the team. And, you know, CJ's never once complained about his role on the team because I think he respects the other guys. He's not selfish at all as a player. So I think it's good that we have, you know, all those guys that can play inside linebacker. We have 3 instead of 2, and they've all played a lot of football, and they've all played well for us at times.
Back to the team program. So why are you reluctant to talk about what you do in the offseason, how you keep yourself, etc.?
Well, I mean, I'm telling you the truth. You know, my motivation comes as a coach to try to help the players on the team be most successful. My motivation as a person would be to serve other people, try to be a good person, which that's challenging for all of us probably in some circumstance, and hopefully we get better as time goes on, as we have more and more experiences. Try to be a good husband and a good father to your children. I mean, I don't know, what else is there? What else is there? Well, you know, as you develop status, like being the head coach, you know, we play basketball as soon as recruiting is over. And, you know, I'm the commissioner of the league. It's a noontime basketball league. It's NBA. I pick the teams, so I have the best players on my team. I also pick the guy that can guard me in the game. And there's only 2 guys in the whole organization that are shorter and slower that I would pick to guard me. And then I call the fouls. So if you call that working out, I guess that's my workout. What's that? I don't want to call anybody out. I mean, I don't think that would be appropriate. They might not play anymore. Not really. We just, you know, we're see how many we can win in a row, creating that kind of advantage for ourselves. No, we don't film it. I don't think that would be something that we would want anybody to see. Yeah, every now and then I call foul myself. Well, you know, I have a tremendous amount of respect for every player that we've had for the 6 seasons that we've been at Alabama. I mean, first of all, we inherited a team that had to buy into a whole new bunch of principles and values, and those guys did it, and we had some success early on with some of those guys and some of the guys that we recruited. You know, the one recruiting class, Julio Jones, Mark Ingram, Mark Barron, that whole group of guys, they came to Alabama when we weren't any good. I mean, there was no winning national championships. There was no winning anything. And, you know, that particular class probably had a significant impact in a lot of ways. But I think every player that's played for us deserves the credit for what they've put into it, personally, academically, and athletically, to sort of make the program what it is. There's a lot of people, man. There's a lot of coaches that have done a fantastic job. We have a great support group at the institution. So, you know, I kind of just end up driving the bus, but we've got pretty good people on the bus. They're in the right seats, and they all buy in and try to do things the right way. So that's probably why we've had the success that we've had.
What's an example of one of the values you say you live there, you talk about what's an example of something that you ask people to do and maybe they weren't asking anything to stand out?
Well, you know, we like to have honesty and integrity in everything that we do. And I've obviously been accused of not having that before, and maybe rightfully so, and certainly wish that that wouldn't have been the case. But just trying to set a good example for doing things the right way. I mean, whether it's for my children, our players. You know, I don't really treat our players any different than I do my own children in terms of how we make the choices and decisions about what we do and what we don't do. So, you know, no one's perfect. A lot of circumstances come up in your life that are tough decisions, and we just try to make them the right way. But probably the thing I feel best about that I've done, if that's the worst thing, is, you know, what we've been able to do with Nick's kids. We had it here in South Florida. It wasn't a great big thing then, but we did help some organizations around, and Nick's Kids is all about, you know, it's an organization not named after me, it's named after my dad for what his legacy was, and I think we've built 14 houses for tornado victims. We give about $500,000 away to kids organizations every year. A lot of people contribute to it. We contribute a significant amount to it. My wife Terry does an unbelievable job of committing her time and energy to trying to help other people. So, and the day before we start camp every year, we have the 78 organizations that we give money to come in, and all the kids, and you know, that's my happiest day. So.
Sorry, Coach. In a recent radio interview, Mike Lombardi said you guys used to go to the movies together. Do you have a favorite funny movie of all time?
Favorite
Funny movie of all time?
funny movie. You know, I'm not really a funny movie guy. You know, I really like those movies that have a message, that are entertaining, that sort of take your mind away from whatever it is that, you know, is sort of overcoming you at the moment. I think that's entertainment to me, so I don't really have a favorite funny movie that I can remember.
Nick, is it harder for freshmen to come in and make an impact in the program than, you know, the way maybe TJ and Amari have made it look? I mean, they seem to have fit in so seamlessly to what you're doing.
But, you know, we've had freshmen play every year. I mean, and quite a few of them, and we've probably had more freshmen play this year than any year. Some of it created by losing some players. But, you know, we don't hesitate to play freshmen. You know, I'm not one of those guys that's every guy needs to get redshirted. I mean, we give everybody an equal opportunity when they come in, and if we feel like they can help our team in some kind of way, we're going to play them. And if they're going to play enough to help their development, we want to play them. If we feel like it would be an advantage for them to learn and grow for a year, whether it's physical development or maybe maturity in some way, then we would sort of take the other approach. But we played a lot of freshmen. Those two guys have done a fantastic job for us, but we've had a lot of other freshmen play this year. If you look out there on the kickoff team, about 3/4 of them are freshmen, and you know, they gave me a little heartburn early in the season, but they're doing a little better now. I think their offense is really, really well conceived, very well designed. You know, Coach Kelly does a really good job with that part of his team in terms of the players that he has, the mismatches that they create, and the diversity that they have on offense, and the development of their quarterback. I mean, he's done a really, really good job, I think. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for their team in general, not to take anything away from their defense because they're very, very good, but I really respect what they've been able to do offensively and how they've improved throughout the course of the years and the challenges that they present in defending them. Well, he's very athletic. He's a much better passer than what people give him credit for. He can extend plays, and he keeps his eyes down the field. So he's made a lot of explosive plays this year by extending plays and throwing it, even though he's athletic enough to run it. But he does a really good job of executing their offense. So we respect him as much as anybody we played all year. Well, to me, it's all about the guys on the team. You know, I'd love it for this group. They've worked hard. They've had a lot to overcome. This is a very young team. We only have 9 seniors on the team. So for this team to get and do what they've done, I have sort of a special respect for. And I'd certainly like to see them be able to finish, you know, in a positive way. That would mean a lot to me for them. Well, I think that that's not really, it's not about the route that you take. It's more about the sort of, do you have the right stuff, you know, to be a head coach. It's almost like being a good quarterback. You know, a lot of guys can throw the ball well enough to be a good quarterback, but their ability to process information quickly, make the right decision, deliver the ball at the right time, and have the timing to be successful playing the position, I think separates the men from the boys. And it doesn't matter if that guy came up in Division III, Division II, played at the most prestigious school in the country. That's still going to separate him, you know, as a quarterback. And I think that the same thing is probably true with guys that are head coaches. I think that if they have the right stuff, the right work ethic, the right leadership, the right principles and values in terms of how they develop their organization and provide leadership for their players, hire good people, and have a well-designed system, you know, for people to be successful in. I don't think it matters if you come up and be a coordinator that becomes a head coach, or you're a guy that came up through the ranks. So I do think that, you know, head coaches sort of get selected a little differently now than they used to. I mean, used to have athletic directors call you and ask you about guys. Now you have headhunters, you know, so it's a little different.
Is it harder for them to find him? Are they looking for those guys now, do you think? For the FCS ranks, or is it going to be still a difficult? Those 2 guys maybe are sort of exceptions. I don't know.
I think anybody that has success, you know, should certainly deserve an opportunity to get sort of evaluated as to whether they have a future. I mean, there's a lot of, you know, people say, well, if you're a Division II coach, you can't recruit. I mean, if you're a good recruiter, you can recruit anywhere. So a lot of those things are probably false, sort of misnomers. But I think that people should, anybody that's having success is having success for a reason, and that they should, that success should create some opportunities for them.
Can you describe their
I don't think there's any question about the fact that we should do that. I've been an advocate of that for a long, long time. You know, a lot of the young people that we have that play college football, you know, the demographics of where they come from, they don't have a lot. And I think that we should try to create a situation where their quality of life while they're getting an education might be a little better. And I certainly think that would be a way, you know, to do it. I don't think there's any question about that. I feel that the athletes should share in some of this to some degree. You know, I don't really have an opinion on how it should be done. I mean, there's a lot of other people that probably have a lot more experience in figuring that one out, but I do think that we should try to enhance the quality of life of all student athletes. I kind of think so. I believe so. I believe the leadership in the NCAA finally sort of acknowledges that. So that's probably a big step in that direction. Well, my father was, you know, I think a lot of us never know when we're growing up, you know, why our parents do some of the things that they do. And sometimes we may not like it much. In some cases may even resent it some. But, you know, I worked from the time I was 11 years old, which I think has probably been the most critical thing in developing the work ethic that I have. I was always required to treat other people with a tremendous amount of respect. There was a bum that used to come to my dad's service station early in the morning because he'd give him free coffee and donuts. And we had a tough game the night before. I don't remember if it was a basketball game, a football game, or whatever. And the guy was giving me a hard time, and I sort of sassed him. I was 17 years old. I got the strap right on the spot. But it was right. I mean, it was the right thing. I mean, I needed to learn a lesson. I was disrespectful to an older person, regardless of the situation, you know. So my parents had tremendous values that I think was tough. You know, it was tough. I worked hard. My dad was my coach. He started Pop Warner football. He bought a school bus, went and picked up all the kids in 3 or 4 coal mining towns and took them home after practice so they wouldn't have to hitchhike. It's about the only way that we got around. And he was a tough coach. He expected your best all the time. Probably instilled some of the perfectionist type characteristics that I have and what I try to do. Had a high standard of excellence for what he expected from you. Discipline was a very important part of what you did, being responsible for doing it the way what you're supposed to do, the way you're supposed to do it, when you're supposed to do it, all that kind of stuff. So I had great parents and a great dad. My mother's here. Got a great mother too. She reinforced all that stuff. So probably when I was a senior in college. You know, that's probably when I realized it. And then my first year of graduate school was when he passed away. So I never really ever told him, which I regret. But that's probably when I realized it the most. As a graduate assistant at Kent State, yeah.
In your position, you do a lot of nurturing. You are the father figure to a lot of these young guys, especially the freshman group that's going to campus for the first time. Talk about the success of T.J. Yeldon and a guy like Maury Cooper and the stress that they've been under and the pressure and how they've been able to handle it.
Well, you know, we try to create an atmosphere and environment where there isn't any stress. You know, there isn't any pressure on them. We don't want them to focus on the external factors of what people might be saying or the expectation that gets created externally for them, but just to focus on being all they can be and doing the best they can do. And I think those two guys have done a really good job of that, and neither one of them have been affected much by it, and both has improved dramatically throughout the course of the season in their consistency and performance as well as their production.
5 minutes remaining in the Alabama media center. 5 minutes remaining.
Like you don't like let assistants talk with the media or freshmen talk with the media, what your reason is behind that, and also just how much you pay attention to what others are saying or trying to train them to watch what they're saying, not say too much, I guess.
Well, I used to let freshmen talk to the media, but I had a couple freshmen, and you know who they are, and I'm not going to mention any names. They've had storied careers in the NFL. When they were freshmen, they sort of made some statements that weren't becoming to the success of the team. So I thought that it would be a good thing for them if we had an opportunity to put them through a program of development of how to actually be able to do that. So we started some seminars, bring some professional people in, how to get interviewed, things to say, how to have messages that you want to get out and bridge to those messages, and where to look when you're talking, stuff like that that actually makes them look better. And it certainly is a better reflection on them, their family, and the entire organization. So that's why we do it for the freshmen. The reason I do it for the coaches is when I was a coach and I worked for Bill Belichick, none of us were allowed to talk to the media because there was one voice. And as an assistant coach, I loved that. All right, because I was always nervous that I was going to say the wrong thing, and it wouldn't be the same message that the head coach sort of had or whatever. So that's why I adopted it, and I think most of our coaches sort of enjoy that, actually. So they can focus on what they need to do to try to help the players and the team a little more. I know that's something that's not very popular with the media, and I understand that part of it too.
How much do you pay attention to like guys were saying, kept abreast of various comments
You know what? I really don't, and I don't even know what you were talking about, because I don't listen to talk radio. I don't really read the paper relative to anything that's written about us, whether it's good or bad. So I think those things are the external factors that I talk about that can create clutter. And one of the reasons I don't do that is when I was first a head coach, I used to read everything, and I was sensitive about everything. So if somebody said we should change kickers, that bothered me. So we changed kickers and lost a game, and I'm saying, why am I listening to that guy? So I quit reading it.
We've got time for two more.
Can you talk about your stop at Michigan State? Obviously, you picked up a lot of things at different stops. What role did Michigan State stop there play in your career, and what did you learn there that you've been able to carry on with success?
Oh, I think the most significant probably thing in the development of my career is probably two things that happened. The first one was when I was at Michigan State as a defensive coordinator with George Perlis, who had been with Chuck Noll at the Pittsburgh Steelers. He was a defensive coordinator. It's really the first really good system defensively that I had the opportunity to learn. And then to be able to implement it as a coordinator was a great experience. And George was a great mentor, from that standpoint. Great defensive coach, great front seven guy. Really, really good. I mean, so I made a huge sort of professional leap. It was the first opportunity to be responsible for something, but I only succeeded at it probably because of George being a mentor, and we were really doing his system. So I was learning his system, and that's a system that we continue to use for a long time. And then the other thing was working for Bill Belichick for 4 years. That was another one of those. I was defensive coordinator again, but just learning a lot of stuff about defining the kind of players that you want, defining roles of people in the organization, so that they knew what was expected of them. Just, a lot of really things that, I think help you have a successful organization.
Can you describe what
The University of Alabama Media Day session is now concluded.
You know what? I have a hard time keeping up with Miss Terry, but I'm sure she's enjoying herself. Let me just say that. She's got a lot of family here. I think she walks on the beach every day. which I think is a really good distraction from the shopping part of it, which I'm happy about.
Thanks, Coach. Thanks.
All right, thank you. You know, I really do appreciate what you all do. I know you all think that I don't like the media, but that's not true at all. I just try to protect what we try to do in our organization so that we can be successful, but you all bring a lot of positive self-gratification to a lot of programs, a lot of people, a lot of players, and it's the conduit to the fans, and we really do appreciate what you do, so thank you.